Welcome back to Harvard. You can't take your eye off the Republican these days because when you do, they're plotting new ways to disenfranchise some voters. Just this weekend in Michigan, for example, a move to rig the electoral vote system to hurt urban voters got a big boost at the state's Republican convention in Lansing. Republicans want to junk the winner-take-all system and instead allocate votes by congressional district in the Electoral College. What this means is that voters in cities, Detroit, for example, who tend to be Democrats, would have their voting strength minimized because they're geographically bunched together. Here's what the disenfranchisement looks like. The real electoral vote count in Michigan in this election last November was 16 Romney, 0. 16 Obama, of course, 0 for Romney. But under the new rigged or rejiggered system, Obama would have won 7 electoral votes, and Romney, who lost the popular vote by nearly 10%, would get 9 electoral votes. Is that fair? And Pennsylvania Republicans are attempting a similar stunt. In Virginia, stricter voter ID laws limiting the number of types, rather, of acceptable ID required to vote have been passed by Virginia lawmakers and now head to the governor for his signature. That's up to Bob McDonnell now. Now, on top of all this is a section of the Voting Rights Act that's going to be challenged this week before the Supreme Court. This is no time to lessen protection of the right to vote. Joining me right now is Pennsylvania Democratic Party Chair Jim Byrne and the co-director of the Advancement Project, an organization that works to protect voting rights, Judith Brown Deannis. Because I want to talk to you about this thing in Michigan. It's so obviously intended to zap the importance of Detroit. It's so obvious because you have a lot of minority voters living there, and this just basically says, okay, you get one CD, we're going to take the state.
That's right. I mean, you know, we have to understand that this wasn't just one act, right? First, you take over state legislature. 2010, the GOP does that. Then what they do is they try and make it harder to vote by passing voter ID laws. And then the third part of their plan is then to change the way the Electoral College votes are allocated so that people in communities of color have less power. And so this is the trifecta of the GOP plan. And we have to understand that, yes, it is not an election year in many places, but God bless them, the GOP has a long-term plan on how to win the game.
Jim, in Pennsylvania, we know all about the photo voter ID card. When is that going to come back into play after that court order? And second, I want to ask you about what are the Pennsylvania Republicans up to in terms of rejiggering the Electoral College up there so they can get a big bulk of electoral votes even if they lose the state every time?
Well, you know, Advancement Project is involved in the Pennsylvania case, and we expect that that ID law will not be implemented for a little while because the state is moving back off of the ID. Every time we went to court, they would lessen the requirements. So we think that that will play out in a bit.
Jim Byrne, thank you. You're chairman of the Democratic Party there. Tell me about the whole outlook of what you see coming out of Harrisburg, what the Republicans are up to with their majority there.
Absolutely. The first part of your question is that there is a court date, I believe, in July. But they say it's not the voter ID, that is. They say it's not about cheating to win. Well, Chris, we talked last October about how they were running around with misrepresentations, creating the impression, falsely, that you needed identification to vote in the November election. Funny how this primary in May of 2013, they're not doing anything remotely close to that. That hearing will be in July. On the second part of your question, with respect to the Electoral College issue, how is it fair that in Pennsylvania, how is it fair that we would award Mitt Romney 8 votes when the president got 20 electoral votes under our current system? Why would we reward him 8 votes when he lost by 300,000? They've started to put in the legislature. This is a very unpopular governor with a Republican-controlled Senate hanging on by its fingernails. This is not a popular idea here. They're going to push it, but I don't know if they're going to be successful.
Do you think Corbett would dare hang this on himself you know, it seems to me it's going to be one heck of a thing to carry across the finish line if he's got this on top of his unpopularity.
That's my point, Chris, exactly. This is not a popular governor. In fact, he is probably the least popular governor in America right now. No governor has been this abysmal in the ratings, this close to a re-elect, and for Tom Corbett, that's next year. So, no, he's trying to stay over the plate right now and trying to get his ratings up. He's failing miserably. Yeah. I just don't see him wanting this type of political baggage when he has enough problems as it is.
Let me go back to Judith on a couple of these things. Run around the bases right now. Basically, Virginia's got a new, they're pushing something now on voter ID. And you got a tough, very close, I think Cuccinelli against McCobb could be a close race if it comes to that this fall. If they can nick a few minority votes, like 5% even, or 3 or 4% away from McAuliffe in that general, they could take it. And I'm just wondering how much they're getting eager to do that right now.
Well, I'm sure they're pretty eager. I mean, you know, we'll have a gubernatorial election. You know, McDonnell, actually, they just passed a law last year. Governor McDonnell did not want a strict ID law. But now here we are getting close to another election, and the Republicans are lining up to make it harder to vote. And so I think that, you know, the governor is in a tough position. He's got to think about what's really fair and where he stood last time, or does he stand with his party so that they can win? And so I think he's in a difficult position. We know that they're lining up in every state. I mean, Missouri, Arkansas, we see that these voter ID laws are still in play because this wasn't just about 2012. This is a long-term plan to make sure that it's harder for Americans to participate in our democracy.
Yeah, I want to get back to Jim about fair play here. Sense. When you talk to voters, it seems to me they understand that the rules get changed. You know, in baseball, you don't have enough home runs, you basically, what do you do, widen the strikes or narrow the strike zone, right? I mean, they do that in baseball, but it's always jiggered for a purpose. People always say, why are you doing that? Why are you changing the strike zone? Oh, we want the game more exciting, you know. In this case, you want the Republicans to win. It just seems like that.
It is, and the difference is, you know, we're talking about baseball versus the failure of the Republican Party to be able to field an adequate candidate. At the end of the day, they have the hard way, which is to reinvent themselves into a fashion that is more consistent and more in line with what Pennsylvania voters are looking for. It's a moderate state, Chris. I mean, you're from here.
That. It's a purple. And by the way, if Bill Scranton were running again or Tom Ridge, they wouldn't have to play games.
That's exactly. Find a Bill Scranton, find a Tom Ridge, find a John Hines. Yeah. Those folks couldn't get out of a Republican primary right now. But if they found a candidate like that, they would appeal to Pennsylvanians. It's easier for them to try to cheat than to do that. And look, I mean, this is the argument. Look at Pennsylvania. Look at Michigan. Yeah, these are the type of states that justify the need for Act 5.
Did you think you would grow old enough to believe that Eisenhower Republicanism looked pretty good? Who would have believed it? Thanks, Jim. Thank you very much. Judith, as always, Judith Dianis for the expertise. Up next, if presidential elections are the mood ring of the country, Oscar night's a close second. A great way to read us. So what did we learn about ourselves on last night's Oscar Awards? This is Hardball, the place for politics.